Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome back. It's probably not evening when you're listening to this, but it's evening here at the moment. It's Tuesday. I'm in London today. Good evening, Steve. How are you?
Hello, mate. I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome back.
You're in a t-shirt and I'm like rugged up. It's super cold in Sydney.
I'm going to explain that. Today in London, we had a terrible day today. We had one of those days. Tuesday's my worst day. Because I have Zoom meetings, three Zoom meetings on Tuesday, intense ones. Most of them are intense. And today we had another one. We had another one for this project we're working on because it's such short tracks. So it's, as you know, it's like very quick. So I had another one. So in between, we had a gap in between of 2 hours. So we went out for a walk, a 9.5 kilometer walk.
Wow.
And it was so hot today. Like, I actually feel like I've actually got a bit sunburned. It was such a beautiful day in London today. Tomorrow is going to be 26 degrees in London. Like, summer is definitely here in London. And summer in London is the best place to be. It's really, really pleasant.
Yeah, cool. It's freezing cold. It's supposed to be, I don't know, some cold front thing has sort of hit southeast Australia at the moment. So super cold and about to kind of pour like crazy, I think.
Lucky I'm here. Let's get straight into it because we've got a few things to get through. I always say this every podcast, Steve, but I just like to go through all the people who have taken the time to give us the reviews. And a few weeks ago, I'm doing this in a slightly different order today.
Sure.
All the people that I asked. Sorry, I'm not making any sense. When I did the shout out 2 weeks ago to give us a review, to get us to the number one Porsche podcast in the world, in the universe, someone said, I think. I can't believe how many people have left us reviews, Steve. This week, I think last week there was 6. This week we have 7 more reviews. So I really appreciate that. Steve and I really appreciate it. It actually pushes us up the Apple podcast charts. And I notice we're sitting, I'm not going to name the number because it's not a competition, as I said to James Little, Amateur, on his Instagram the other day. But we are getting quite high up in the US charts, which is quite surprising. Cool. And Australia, we're reasonably high. And there was another country, Panama, we're still high in Panama, and somewhere else I can't remember. But we've had 7 reviews, Steve. I'm not going to read them all out because we don't really have the time to do it today. But I just wanted,
and then we could just go again.
we could use the whole podcast just reading reviews. That's what it'll end up being. Eventually, I'm going to have to. I'm going to get distracted here, but I'm just going to talk about this. When I put the owner stories up, like the new owner stories, which I'll get onto in a minute. When I put owner stories up, Steve, I do an Instagram post on PorscheCooled. If you haven't been to PorscheCooled, go over to PorscheCooled on Instagram and give us a follow. And I also do it on P997.1, which that Instagram was always for my 997. I always only had 997 photos on there. I've started to put the podcast on there as well, just to promote the owner stories.
I get confused, but yeah.
Because now, Steve, we've had 37 owner stories. They only give me 20 tags per post on Instagram. So I tag everyone that's been on owner stories. So I'm getting to the point now, once we get another 3, I can't tag everyone. So if people have been on owner stories before and they don't see, a reminder come up, or see if they think, oh, how come Michael didn't tag me in the post? It's because I've literally run out of tags. I can't tag anymore once we hit 40.
Is that, I've got to ask, and this is such a bad question for somebody that's supposed to know, is that Instagram etiquette to tag people in the posts?
Well, it gets you more traffic. It shows up in people's messages. It'll show up in your messages that they've been tagged.
Yeah. Like I know, like for example, if you and I go for a drive, you take a photo of my car, you tag me, but I didn't realize that it was broader than that, if you know what I mean.
Well, it also, unless you turn it off, whenever someone tags you, if you tag, like if I tag Luft, for example, I'm not going to pronounce the whole word Luftkult, then my photos will show up in their feed on the second tab, I think it is. It'll show up that I've tagged them and my photo will show up on their Instagram. That's how you get more traffic on Instagram. Because it actually, when whoever you tag on there, unless they've got it turned off, you'll show up on their page. So it gets you more exposure. So that's why people tag, basically. And also it's respect if you're using someone's photo. Like PorscheCooled, I repost. so I repost people's photos. So it's common etiquette to tag someone. Like, over the weekend there was an event at I'm not going to pronounce this right, and people are going to laugh at me. Bicester Heritage. I think that's how you pronounce it. And Nick, and I think Nick has been on Owner's Stories, Nick Classic Series, PJ, who I'm going to get onto. He's got an event coming up, and Sunburn Lobster Jack. They all went to it. And I noticed there was pictures of Nick's car, his 912, showing up on other people's Instagrams. And they didn't even they didn't credit him at all. They just put the picture up. You know what I mean? Now, sometimes it's just people just do it, not intentionally. But other times they just don't tag, and there's a lot of Instagram sites that do that. I had a bit of a run-in with a guy on PorscheCooled, and I don't have many run-ins. I've had a couple of run-ins, but I had a run-in with this guy, Steve, because he didn't like the way that I credited his posts. I was reposting his images, and he's got great images, right? And he didn't like how I was crediting him on the post. So he was going to complain to Instagram, and he was like, I don't want you to post any more of my photos. I said, fine, I won't give you the exposure. I'll stop. So I did, and I blocked him, and I don't do it anymore for him at all. So, he didn't like how there was a dot and there's space. He didn't like how his credit wasn't up the top. Very, very...
Well, this story for all the other fellow dinosaurs out there is don't get into social media.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, let's get on to the reviews. There were 7 reviews. The first one, entertaining Porsche discussion. That was from Tyler 9595. Thank you, Tyler. Triple E's, engaging, entertaining, and educational. BB Kerr 1. That's Bob from Canada. Bob's been on Owner's Stories before, so thanks for that review, Bob. Much appreciated. New to podcast and new to Porsche. Like I said, I'm not going to read out the review because it's just going to take too long if I read everyone's out. That's Pete the Trucker. Pete the Trucker is on Instagram, and Pete the Trucker is he's going to come on a future Owner's Stories. I think he reached out to me wants to be on Owner's Stories, so he'll be on a future Owner's Stories. Great podcast for Porsche lovers. That's from Assad, United States of America. Thank you. Number 1 Porsche podcast in the galaxy, and that is Matters77 from Great Britain. Thank you so much. Cool. Porsche Mates Chat. I can't talk today, Steve, seriously. Porsche Mates Chat. 911 Touring in Australia. I think I know who that is. Thank you so much. And PorscheCooled James H911 from Great Britain. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time to give us a review. If you don't know why it's so important, it basically just gets us seen in the search results, and it gets us high in the Apple charts. Steve, what's been happening? How was you? Tell me about your drive with Marco.
Marco? Yeah. We went for a spin. Well, actually not a spin, to me is short. We went for a long drive, this time up Putty Road, the drive that you and I and Tasha did before you left. But... Many years ago. The day before rained, and the roads are kind of wet. We were out there at 7:30 on a weekday. Unfortunately, the roads were kind of wet. So, when the sun's coming up and it's still sort of slick, I was kind of hoping that it would dry out. But just sort of slightly funny, greasy kind of conditions. And both of us had new sets of tyres. So I think we were a little bit uncertain of, exactly how quick was too quick in those sorts of conditions.
So your tyres aren't scrubbed in yet?
They should be. Although I was sort of reading, because we keep sort of talking so much tyre stuff, I was reading another, excuse me, PS4S kind of thread where somebody was kind of going, I used to have PS2s, switched to PS4S, and I don't like them. They kind of feel really slippy. And then the consensus, I think this was a Piston Heads thread, and then the consensus on there was you've got to run them in for like a couple of hundred miles to really kind of scrub them in properly. And a lot of people sort of said, oh, yeah, okay, you were right. You really need to kind of do wear them in. I wish I read that before I went on that Putty Road drive.
Yeah, exactly.
But we weren't, to be honest, we weren't pushing so hard that, it's not like I was sliding all over the place. I thought the other interesting thing was, I don't know if you remember, because you're kind of going up the back way, it's sort of like pretty much tree-lined road the whole way. And with the sun in a certain position, it felt like I had a strobe light in my face.
Really?
Sort of felt like Clockwork Orange sort of thing, where it's like, wow, I can't, just have this constant blinking light in my head.
I'll just tell the listeners, Steve shared me a video that you did in the car. That was the week before, wasn't it? That was a different time, wasn't it?
That was a couple of weeks ago. That was the Dural Wiseman's Ferry thing.
That was your phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Steve hooked up his phone onto his roll cage and he sent me this video. It was actually a good video. It was actually quite long. I'm quite impressed, Steve, that you took the time to do that video. But I have to tell you,
heaps shorter. Yeah,
it's a really good video. Like I would have liked to have shared it on to the Patreon guys so they could have seen it privately, because the sound of your GT3 sounded amazing. Like, it sounded really good. Even just with the iPhone microphone, it sounded really, really good, and it looks so cool. Yeah. I have to admit, I showed it to Tasha and I said, "Look, this is why I'm so depressed."
Yeah, Mark and I felt bad about that. We were talking, and it was like, oh, I feel bad because I know we're sort of Marco sharing pics. I shared that one vid, and I was going to take another video, but we kind of know that we're sort of, kind of sticking a sharp object into your ribs kind of thing, because we're not trying to needle you. But that footage is surprising. It's just like, I bought this new MagSafe mount thing. So that's basically just magnetically attaching my iPhone 12 to the roll cage, just getting whatever you get. Like, I can't even swivel the position. And I was really surprised at how good the sound and the footage is.
Yeah, it's a really good camera view. The angle's cool because you see you driving. I mean, Steve's got Steve's in his car and he's got like a big, winter parka, like it's -20 or something. I don't know what's going on there. But
out in the Arctic.
One thing, I can't drive in coats like that. I have to take them off. I always find them too restrictive when I'm driving.
I get cold.
Do you, in the car? Put the heater on.
Yeah, I'm an old man, mate.
Put the heater on.
Everyone else knows that too.
It looked like a great drive, though, especially with the fog and everything and the mist. It looked like a great drive.
But you are right that the sound quality. I sent it to you. So I did that quickly because Marco. I was trying to sort of see. Marco was saying that he had some black soot kind of coming from the back of his car, and he was trying to work out whether it was a combination of exhaust or tire degradation or whatever, and we were just sort of fooling around. So I said, let me quickly sort of film it. And then when I filmed it, like, if you listen really carefully to it, sorry, this is getting really boring for everyone else, you can hear the turbo spool on Marco's car when I'm following.
Oh, I couldn't have to listen to it again.
I'll point it out to you later.
The one thing I did notice, though...
I'll do it again properly.
Yeah. The one thing I did notice, and I mentioned it to you, and Marco's probably listening, it looked like Marco was holding you up. It looked like the GT3 wanted to go faster. It looked like you were just waiting to go a little bit faster, mate.
Interestingly,
like how when you follow me and you always want to go faster and I always hold you up.
Yeah, well, no, it's we take it easy. We're not sort of stupid on public roads, but also I find that the video footage is actually kind of slower than real life. It's sort of like, when you watch Formula One in real life and then you kind of watch it on TV. Cameras and filming slow everything down. It looks slower than it actually is.
Yeah, well, I saw you speedo and, you were within speed limits, of course, but you weren't going that slow.
Yeah, no comment. But yeah, look, the putty drive was actually funny. Like, I was saying it to Marco too. Like, the time you, Tasha, and I went up, and we swapped cars for a little bit, all that sort of stuff, I really, really enjoyed that drive. I got really tired because you wanted to drive the same route back, which meant like that was about 7 hours of driving. We didn't do that. We only drove putty on the way up and then went the freeway on the way back.
What do you mean I wanted to drive it back? I thought that's what you just do. You drive it back. You drive it up and you drive it back.
Mate, 7 hours.
It wasn't 7 hours. It was about 300 odd kilometers, I think, wasn't it, in total? And it was about 4 hours, four and a half hours. 500.
Well, also where I live, there's another hour from getting onto it from where I am. So anyway, it was different.
Oh, I didn't realize you would go back the fast way. You should have told me. You didn't tell me that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. You live and learn. But what I was going to say was it's just different. There's something different about it. I don't know if it was kind of the wet roads or whatever else, but
right.
we kind of got through it heaps quicker too. Like like there's that sort of super tight kind of windy bit. Like I kind of always feel like that's sort of right at the end. And then, we were driving along, we swapped. So I led first and Marco led second. And then all of a sudden he was kind of driving through the windy bits and we didn't realize that we were that far there. And then all of a sudden we were in the Hunter.
We swapped cars a couple of times, didn't we? We stopped a couple of times,
positions.
We stopped as well. We stopped and we had a chat. And then there was that guy that was chatting to me when I went to the loo across the road. Remember? Strange people always come up to me and just want to chat to me. Do you remember that?
It's because you're famous, mate. No, I don't remember that. But...
No. He was asking about the cars. He was actually interested in the cars, which was, I was being friendly. Let me just mention the Patreon members, Steve, because there's been a few this week. I don't think... I'm going to shout out... I don't think I mentioned Ben last week, but Ben, who's on Owner Stories, which I'm going to get into in a second, Ben is now a PorscheCooled member. So thank you, Ben, for joining. I know I spoke to you privately, but thank you so much. Ben's from the UK. He's Owner Stories this week. He's got the perfect spec 981 Spider. It's a beautiful car. He takes great images of it. So we'll get into Owner Story. His photos
are good. His photos are good.
They're good, aren't they?
Yeah. He knows how to handle a camera.
He does. And you know what? Carbon ceramics, it just makes me want carbon ceramics because they just look so cool with silver and black cars. The yellow, the yellow and the carbon disc, it just looks so cool. I don't care how much they cost, honestly. They just, they just look cool. Mm-hmm. You agree?
Yeah, except I care how much they cost. I'm a rich lucky, mate.
Oh, yeah, wish. And then we got Simon. Simon is been on Owner Stories recently. Simon is at PorscheNut9 on Instagram. I know some people know him already. He has the 996.2 GT3 and the GT3 Cup car. Thank you, Simon. Thanks for joining. Bernard. Now, I'm not going to mess this up, Bernard, because I know you put a big post on Instagram about it, how Steve couldn't pronounce this last week. I don't even know if Steve saw the post. He was tagged on the post, so he should have seen it.
Didn't see it.
Bernard is at Bernard's number plate. We couldn't pronounce it in his Instagram handle. It's EBITDA. There you go, Bernard. EBITDA.
And what does it mean?
It means earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, or something like that. I don't know what the last one was. Yeah.
Way beyond my pay grade.
Yeah. Bernard's an accountant, so you have to forgive us for that one because we just don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just good at spending money. I'm not good at all the other side of it, the accounting side of it.
I'd second that.
Yeah. And Christopher, thank you, Christopher. Christopher hasn't been on Owner Stories. All the other Patreons this week have actually, but Christopher has reached out to me. He's told me a little bit about his story. Sounds good, and I'm going to schedule him for a future Owner Story. He's got a 03. What is it? 986 Boxster. I think it's in lapis blue. He told me in that nice blue. Mm-hmm. I really like Boxsters in blue. I like them in blue and silver. They're the two best colors, I think. And Christopher used to own a 997.1 and an 06, but it was a Carrera S. He owned that a few years back, and then life got in the way, and then he had to sell it. And he's come back to Porsche and he's bought this Boxster, so his son can enjoy the experience. But that's going to be a story coming up on Owner Stories. But thank you to those 4 people. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Christopher, for joining PorscheCooled. It really does help us. It helps support the podcast. If you want to join PorscheCooled, like I said, you just go to PorscheCooled/Patreon, or just search. You just go to patreon.com and search PorscheCooled, and it will come up straight away. Let me just get straight on, Steve. Have you listened to the Owner Stories this week?
I did.
Oh, you just said that, didn't you? So it's number 37, Ben. I know you're listening, Ben. Ben said I won't quote. Ben said his wife was surprised when she listened to it. He sounded good. I won't use the actual language, but she said he sounded good, so that was good. We all worry about our. No, I think his wife's comment was he didn't sound like a, and then there was a word. So I'm not going to say it because I don't like swearing so much on the podcast.
Does it rhyme with hunt?
But Ben's owned 3 Porsches before. He had a Boxster 2.5, a really early one. Then he got the 987 Boxster S. Then he went through, he's gone through BMWs as well in between. He's had an E46 M3, Steve, which was an SMG, and he actually liked the SMG. He actually liked the character of it. I was
surprised to hear that. Yeah, but I found it quite interesting in terms of I've never driven one. You read all the car mags, people kind of slag it sort of thing, but not that it's for me to judge, but the way that he kind of rationalized it in terms of making it more characterful and all of that sort of stuff, and the imperfection in it kind of gives it more character. It's like, oh yeah, I never thought about it like that. That's quite a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? I never thought about it. And as soon as he, I think not long after I recorded that episode, I went and had looked at the price of them in Australia to see how much they were, because I knew the SMGs are always lower than the manuals, and there's a lot more of them. And I thought, maybe the SMG is actually not as bad as what everyone's making out. So it was interesting. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ben's had, he's had the E46 SMG, he's had an E92 M3. I think his earlier cars, he had a GTI Mark 5, Mark 5 GTI. He had a Peugeot in there. He also had a 997.2 Carrera 4S. So he scratched that 911 itch, so to speak, as he said. Good story. And now he's driving that 981 Boxster. He wanted a certain spec. If you listen to the story, you know what I'm talking about. It's got the right seats. It's got the good brakes. It's in the right color. It looks great. And cool. Like you said, those photographs, Steve, on his Instagram, really make it look fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice stuff. Nice car.
Yep.
Love to have it going on.
Yep. I know you want one, don't you? That's what I was saying. You're kind of keen on them, especially the 981, right?
Yeah, I'd love to have a go. But, obviously that ain't going to happen. But it's nice to dream.
They don't come up very much, though. I noticed there's a black 986 one at the moment with high kilometers.
986, the old one.
Yeah,
so it's not
auto.
Really. That kind of wasn't really that sort of motorsporty in reality, was it? I think that was sort of more like a cosmetic thing, whereas the 987 981 and the current one are obviously sort of a little bit more performance oriented.
I think you look for a 981. I think you get the 981, that's for sure. But when they come up, they don't come up very often. I know in Australia, and I think they're 200.
Pretty rare.
200, aren't they? Roundabout?
Yeah, I think so.
190 to 200,000 approximately. Nice looking car though. So anyway, listen to Ben's story if you haven't already. 981 Boxer Spider, and you can go and check out his car. Great images. It's at Peaks, Peaks, Peaks Porsche, at Peaks Porsche. Steve, where are we? I want to talk about... I want to go back to tires just very, very quickly. I got a lot to talk about today, and I don't know if we're going to get through it all, actually. I want to talk about tires because I was interested when you said about Marco's tires.
Yep.
And I'm interested that, I didn't think, and people who know about Pilot Sport 2s, which are the Porsche tire for for a lot of models, 997s.
Yep.
I never thought they updated that N rating very often. So I was quite surprised when you told me, because mine's N2, right? So that's 2017, end of 2017. And I remember at the time the guy said this is the new version. So it must have just changed over. I remember the guy at Jack's told me, he said they're N2s now. He actually made the point to me. And Marco's are N4s.
I can't remember. I didn't even say anything to him, but I remember because you asked me, I'd made a note of looking at them.
You said
N3s and N4s, and I think it was N4s on the front and N3s on the back.
Yeah, and I did a search on that after you told me that because that confused me. Because in my mind, I thought when you had N-spec tires, they had to be the same number N-spec.
Yeah, I don't think so. But... And
it seems when I did a check on the internet, as the internet always does to us, the internet gave me different answers depending on where I looked. So one Porsche site said that you can't mix N tires. One forum said, no, it's fine to mix them if the two on the front are the same and the two on the back are the same. It's not a problem. It was kind of half and half. It was like a bit of that thing again where it's like, do you need N tires or do you not? And then it's like, does it matter or does it not matter? And it was all it was still one of those things which, I don't really know what the answer is. That's where I sort of ended up.
So I know you sent me that article on it, which was from a Porsche dealership. And, I can understand Porsche sort of saying, oh, no, you can't, blah, blah, blah. But I'd still maintain that, a different generation of N rating, the tires aren't going to be so far different that it's going to be like that extreme. And then, for example, if it was just me or even I think I could sort of talk on Marco's behalf, like if you're not going to track the car or whatever else, and you're just sort of going for spirited drives, like, are you really going to feel the difference between two different, N ratings front to back? I very, very, very highly doubt that. So I can't imagine that that's going to be like a deal breaker of any kind.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I don't know what the right answer is. I just was in my head. I always thought it had to be matching, and then, like I said, when I searched, it was all over the place, like the internet does. It just confuses you, and you just give up. You get so tired looking, and it's like, oh, I've had enough now.
Exactly, it's confusing, and I think by the letter of the law, if you kind of go by the Porsche Bible, like they're always going to sort of say that, but then maybe kind of like in the real world when money is an object and you don't have tons of cash to kind of splash around for new tires all the time and all that sort of stuff, that it's a slightly different conversation.
Yeah, true. Instagram's killing me at the moment, though. Like, with you sending me videos and seeing Marco's pictures and then seeing all the guys here in the UK, a lot of them have been on owner stories. They're all going, they went to events last weekend at Bicester, and, the sun's out here and everyone's driving their Porsche. I tell you, it's getting a bit depressing, but I just want to do a shout out.
Sorry, mate.
I just want to do a shout out for this event that's coming up. And this event has been organized by PJ. And PJ, you can go back. He was in Owner Stories. I don't know what the number is. I didn't write the number down. I can't remember. But PJ owns the white 356A. And he's in the UK. So PJ's organising an event, which he's done before. He has done it before. And it's called Classics at the Clubhouse. Classics at the Clubhouse Air-Cooled Edition. I'll read what he puts on the website, actually, because it's easier if I just read it out, then I won't mess up anything. Where Wolfsburg meets Stuttgart, bringing together the finest air-cooled Porsche and VW in one beautiful location. It's at Sanford Springs Hotel and Golf Club on the Hampshire-Berkshire border in London. So if you're in London and you're in London, around the London area, well, I always call it London, and I know because I'm not a local, but I always say London, meaning, Greater London, I guess. But it's in Hampshire-Berkshire border. Like I said, Sanford Springs Hotel and Golf Club. And this year's Air-Cooled Edition will see air-cooled cars from all over the UK gather on the rolling hills of the Sanford Springs Golf Club, surrounded by manicured lawns, woodland, natural springs. And it's basically if you have a Type 2 or a 912, a Flat 6 or a Flat 4, painted or patina, it doesn't have to be concourse. All air-cooled cars are welcome. And curated displays and large show areas, we guarantee you will see something you've never seen before.
Cool.
I think he's got some really special cars that are being there. He's got quite a few sponsors for the event. So it's going to be very, very good. Hopefully it's a really sunny day in London. I've seen pictures on the website of the location, Steve. It looks fantastic. All the guys...
When is it?
It's on the 27th of June. It's on Sunday, the 27th of June. If you go to Classics at the Clubhouse, anyone in the UK or close to London wants to go to it, go to Classics at the Clubhouse. Just search that. It comes up straight away. I think he has 2 tickets. I think there's an air-cooled ticket and there's a general ticket. The air-cooled ticket is if you want to put your vehicle on the, alongside the other cars to display your cars. There's one ticket, and then there's just a general admission ticket. I think children under 12, I've written it down. Children under 12 are free of charge. So there's 2 tickets there. They're not expensive tickets. I didn't write down the price.
You can take my child, the one that's learned to shout. You can hear screaming in the background for this whole podcast. Sorry.
No one's complained yet. Except Ajmal. Ajmal complained. I don't know what the price is. I didn't write it down. It's not very expensive, but go to Classics at the Clubhouse. Like I said, if you want to go to a great event, a great air-cooled, a great Porsche event, I will be attending. I say that and hopefully nothing changes because I actually work on Sundays due to the Middle East, but in my day job, but I will be attending. Ajmal's reached out to me. I'm going to meet up with Ajmal. I'm going to catch the train out to where Ajmal lives. We're going to go together. And like I said, the other guys who have been on PorscheCooled Owner Stories will be there. There'll be Nick at the Classic Series. Jack, Sunburnt Lobster is going to be there. PJ, of course, is going to be there with his 356A. Nick, Classic Series with his white 912. Ajmal, of course, with his blue 912. Sunburnt Lobster with his 911S. Flat 6 Jack, the guy that they use, Jack, who everyone uses to fine-tune their Porsche. So everyone's going to be there, so it'll be a pretty good event, Steve.
Yeah, cool. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, I know. It'd be good to see some good cars and meet all these guys. It'd be good fun. Yeah, cool. All right. I'm out of breath. What's been happening? What's this thing about the carbon bucket seats? You can't buy those anymore?
I don't know. I think I just came across a thread on Renlist. Like we've been talking GT3s recently that keep popping up on car sales in Australia. Like there's the white one at Autohouse. There's another white one with martini stripes at Adelaide, and everybody kind of keeps talking about, like, supposedly how come they're sitting so long. Actually, there was a black one, a black Club Sport has popped up at Dutton's in Victoria as well. And the ad popped up on Saturday, but then like an hour later it went down. It's like, oh wow, has it already sold? But I think it's popped back up again. So
yeah, it's back up.
There was a glitch in the system or something. But small segue to that was like, I still can't quite figure out, like if you're in the 997.1 GT3 market, whether or not people really, 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 really just want a Club Sport, and that's why, like these ones are sort of maybe kind of sitting there. But connected to that was that I came across a threads that sort of said that the carbon buckets, which I've got in my car that came with Club Sports, the Carrera GT style seats, are discontinued. I don't know if that's true or not. But Car Newell in Belgium with Gert, he usually can kind of get most things, and I went and had a quick look, and you can't get them from him anymore. So maybe these things maybe they're not available anymore, and maybe it's just going to make the values of them kind of climb even further, and
Club Sports even higher.
Yeah, and going back to the sort of GT3, I can't talk today. Going back to this 997 GT3 conversation, for example, if it's you and, you kind of came across a really cool car in the right color and right specs, but say it had just the sport seats, the non-buckets, I would have always sort of said to you, oh, don't worry about it, mate, just buy that and then save up some cash and go and buy the buckets and then sort of install them later. But if you get them after that, and they're kind of crazy expensive now, like
the prices you had.
In that conversation somebody was saying that a pair just sold on Bring a Trailer for $12,000 US, and then like there's another site that I kind of follow, what's it called, Scuderia V, that regularly posts on Renlist. They've got like a used set as well for €15,000, which...
What's the original price then?
Don't know.
See,
no idea.
Can I just go back to them being discontinued? I find that a little bit strange, because that conversation we were having a couple of weeks ago in a previous podcast about that new division, you know what I mean? Modernizing your classic 911, and 996s and 997s are included. It would be weird if they discontinued those seats, because those seats seem to be something that will be part of that program.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I mean, they'd be coming from Recaro. They'd be they're Recaro made for Porsche, and like obviously no one else, as we've kind of discussed before. I don't know. It's probably no different from the fact that, like if you want those really cool pole positions in a 964 RS, the ones that commonly came with the tricolor cushion insert, which everybody lusts after.
Yeah, I love those.
They're crazy expensive. I bet you they don't make those anymore. So I guess it's just with time.
That Ruby Stone RS, there was one for sale. I think I sent it to you, and I think I sent it to Ajmal at Flat Cap Driver. And it had the seats, and it was just like, oh man, it's just so fantastic.
Those seats are awesome. Yeah,
it just looks so cool, those seats with the Ruby Stone, and you know how much I love that Ruby Stone red. It's just such a great color. In RS, it's the color. It's the color.
I think when I dropped in on John at Pro Stitch, I think he had a set of those seats, and I think he had the tricolor inserts. It's like, oh man, they're so good. They look so good.
They're so beautiful. It was weird last week. We were talking about, last week's episode, we were talking about the gap, the price gap, the gap getting closer, or, between 996 and 997. And I quickly looked at it earlier today, and I was thinking, well, not earlier today, earlier tonight. And I don't know whether it's getting closer or it's getting bigger, Steve. And I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but it seems that everything now, and I know it's inflation, and I know this is just what happens, but a lot of cars depreciate more than they appreciate, right? But the fact that these cars like a 996, and I'm talking about in particular that GT3, And I'll just tell the listeners, there's a 996.1, and Greg at First Flat 6 will be interested in this one. 996.1 Speed Yellow, a classic throttle shop in Sydney, which is, one of the dealers in Sydney, a good dealer. It's for sale for 290,000 Australian dollars. Now, 290,000 Australian dollars is about 160,000 pounds. It's about 230,000 US, something like that. And I thought it was really weird, Steve. So I just checked on Redbook, and Redbook to the international listeners is a bit like, this is in Australia, is like it's like Blue Book. And they said the price when new was 225,000.
Yep.
Now, the prices are getting crazy, right? When you look at that, they're getting crazy. We know you can make money on cars. A lot of people think cars are a depreciating asset, but you can make money on cars. But this price thing, I just can't work it out. You know what I mean? I really can't work it out. And like you said, there was that black one at Dutton's, which apparently sold and then didn't sell. It was a club sport. And what did it have? 90-odd thousand miles, Steve?
No, it had like 100 and something kilometers on it. Like, not 100,000, like 123 kilometers. Yeah, and as Steve said, we thought the same car?
Yeah, the black GT3, the one that we thought that sold straight away.
The one that just came up. Yeah, no, that's got 95,000 kilometers on it.
Yeah, and it looked like it sold like in a minute because it came up sold, and now it's still available. But it just shows you, and Steve brought this up, does high mileage impact your price? It doesn't seem to.
I don't know. I'm curious because my car's got, like, I think more than the average mileage on it for a 997 GT3. And, like, I'm only doing it out of curiosity. Like, sometimes I kind of get a bit tired of sort of like the whole kind of value sort of conversation because, like, it's really meaningless unless you're literally in or out of the market kind of thing. But I don't know. Classically, everybody, like when they sort of decide that they want to kind of buy in, like it's just human nature that most people really want to buy like a low mileage kind of car, but then you often sort of hear and see the kind of counterpoint, which is particularly with, say, something like a 964 or 993, where like if that car's gotten to 20 years old and older than that mileage should be less relevant, and you really should be kind of buying on kind of condition and maintenance. And, then there's a conversation about a regularly kind of driven car that's not, sort of sat in traffic and all of that sort of stuff is far more desirable than sort of something that's just kind of sat around and not racked up miles. But
but we're talking about that gap last week, and I guess we're talking more about Carreras, right? The 996 Carrera and the 997 Carrera, and how the 996 Carrera has now crept up so much. And we're talking about Australia. I wasn't quite sure if it was the same in the UK or the US or Europe, but the 996 Carrera is almost getting very close to the same price of a 997, where you decide, well, do I really want a 996 or do I want to go more modern, right? But then when we get into the GT cars, it seems like it's a different story now, because the 996 GT3 was always sitting, 130 to 150 maybe in Australia, which is much less than the 997, which is about, 180 to 220, roundabout?
It was about, it's probably about 50 grand saving, I think.
Yeah, so of course this yellow one, the Speed Yellow one, a classic throttle shop, has got very low kilometres, right? It's got 10,000 kilometres. 10 or 14,000 kilometers. Yeah. So it's very low kilometers. But here you go. You got a car at 290,000 Australian dollars, which far exceeds all the 997s for sale, even the one in black with 10,000 kilometers.
Yeah, true.
So the gap is, in GT cars, it's a completely different market, Steve.
Yeah, and look, again, we're banging on about prices just because it's something to talk about, but these are obviously advertised prices too, which means that you don't really know what they're kind of selling for, what they're fetching. So it could be just sort of like a pipe dream on behalf of the seller.
See, I don't agree with that anymore. I think that these prices, I think when they sell them, they're close to that price. I don't think they're that much different. I really don't think they're much different. Maybe $5 grand, but I don't think they really go for that much different, because people, they know there's a market for them. There was someone will come along and buy this car.
Yeah, I'd counter that with, like, if you're in the kind of game, you've got a few cars, blah blah blah, you know what they're worth, and you know, like they're such nice cars, they're highly desirable and all that sort of stuff. So like, if you don't sort of necessarily kind of need the money, then what's the other motivation to sort of sell it? It's like, well, if somebody's willing to give you really, really, really good money for it, so therefore you kind of speculate.
Which is what I said last week.
Throw it, you throw it online because you're sort of fishing a little bit. You know, like not in a million years will I let go of my car.
If someone wants to buy the PorscheCooled 997 in Sydney, it's for sale for 160,000. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You sort of never say never sort of thing. So I don't really know if the asking price is truly indicative of what sort of changes hands. You'd have to talk to somebody more like, you know, James at Porsche Platz or Scotty at Auto House or somebody like that to kind of get a real gauge of you know, what selling prices are. And I think that's where you start reading, when you start reading the forums more, like, you know, in Australia, if you read Porsche Forum Australia, and then some of the guys there sort of discuss you know, what they literally kind of bought or sold a car for. And I think that's where you get a much better idea of prices. It sort of reminds me, actually, slight tangent. I remember talking to like a recruiter in advertising like years and years and years ago. She's sort of a friend. And when you talk about salaries, she always used to sort of say to me, even as a recruiter, nobody ever quotes the actual salary that they earn, like whether they're in an interview or whether they're sitting at a barbecue talking to a friend. She sort of said nobody ever actually kind of divulges their actual kind of salary because it's just got that weird sort of psychological thing. You always sort of tell people that it's worth more or you're getting paid more than you actually are for some strange
That's funny. Yeah,
reason.
That's probably true. Yeah. That's true, yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, that and also just going back to prices before we just jump off this very quickly. The Turbo, that article that I was just telling you about that I saw on classiccars.com, because there was they've got I think this is quite recent actually. They had a 2003 911 Turbo for sale. You know, 996, which everyone wants at the moment. Like I said, Ted Gushu bought one, so they're all going to go up in price for sure because he's, you know, Type 7. And it said that this car in 2003 had a sticker price of 118,780, and it's for sale now for 94.5. So, you know, these prices are getting very close to what they were selling in their day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The one at Classic Throttle Shop, the yellow GT3, that's in excess of the price it was in its day. It's like 75,000 more. Obviously, it had might have had some options on it. Maybe that's just a standard price, but it's still selling in excess. I find this pricing thing at the moment and the price of cars, like there was another car on Bring a Trailer the other day, a 911S that sold. It had like 10 minutes to run, I think, and it was at 220,000 US. It sold for, this is a 70s one, I think it was, early 70s. Ended up selling for like 310,000 or something, Steve, US dollars. I mean, the prices are just crazy. These people, when you know, I find Bring a Trailer very interesting because you just watch people bid and the amount of money that people have and the price they go to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a bit of a feeding frenzy, which is the point of kind of putting your car on an auction site like that.
And it's not just Porsche.
Kind of rev people up and get everybody sort of excited. Yeah.
But it's not just Porsche, you know. They had a GT40, the new GT40.
Yeah.
And it literally, and I think some racing car driver owned it. It was a purple one. People might know what I'm talking about if they follow it. And it sold for twice the value, double the value. It sold for over $1 million.
Yeah, there's I was going to save it for next week possibly, but there's an article on Evo written by Dickie Meaden that's sort of talking about kind of cars as investments and all of that sort of stuff, and he's got a counterpoint to it. Maybe talk about it next week.
Let's do it next week.
Yeah, have a little read. But it is funny because I think like again, like when I read Renlist pretty much every day, and people get really, really sick of sort of talking about GT3 kind of values because it's like, well, like I sort of said before, you can kind of labor over it, and I know it has become like an appreciating asset like property or art or something like that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's made for driving, so it sort of spoils some of that to a degree. Yeah,
true. The other thing we're going to chat about, and I'm going to credit someone for this because I was sent a message from Amir, and if you remember Amir, he was on an Owner Stories as well, very early Owner Stories. Amir's in Los Angeles.
Yep.
He has a 993. Amir had a 993 cab, and I think it was a 98 993 cab in white.
Oh, and he did a lot of work on it himself?
Yeah, he does all the work. He does all the servicing on it. Great story. Really nice guy, Amir. So he had the 98, it was a 98 993 cab, it was in white, and he had a 2010 997.2 Cabriolet. He had two Cabriolets in black. So he had the air-cooled, he had the water-cooled, and he does all the servicing on both of his cars. And he said, why don't you, he had an idea for a topic, and I thought we'd just touch on it because I thought it was a good one. I thought it was a good idea, and something we've thought about before in a way. And then basically, if you personalize your Porsche, Amir said to me, personalize your Porsche, are you going to leave it on? Are you going to leave it on, or are you going to remove it before you sell it? Mm-hmm. And I just want to go back. I just want to refer this to owner's story, Stephen. All the people I've spoken to, some people mod their 911. Some people are happy with not changing it at all. Most of those people are people who are still under warranty, and they don't want to void their warranty in whatever country they're in. Other people are happy to keep it OEM because they like it to be OEM. They might just do an exhaust mod on it, very simple mod. And I thought this topic was good, and when I sent it to you, because I thought it's quite good because we talked about your 993, and you said that was the car that you regret selling. And I have to admit, when it came up for sale, like I said, at Auto House, it was like one of those cars where I think I should have bought.
Yep.
So your 993 had a lot of mods, right? I mean, maybe you should just refresh the listeners. You should just refresh the listeners and tell them what you put on your 993.
Mate, I can't remember now.
Roundabout.
Yeah, okay.
Roundabout.
Yeah.
You know what was on there, like RS parts, right?
I had the turbo front bumper put on it after I had a little incident, so I kind of just tipped some extra money in. Had turbo 18-inch wheels. I had the interior redone, so the seats and the dash was like redone in Napa leather. The seats were kind of I had the cushions sort of bolstered to make them more like the softback sport seats. It had like a range of exhaust mods, sort of like the Fister style kind of thing. To one point, it actually had an X pipe put on it as well, which made it even louder. I had a short shift kit. It had the speakers replaced with really good AVIs and the Becker head unit. I went to town on that thing. Like, it had everything done to it.
I think that gives the listeners an idea who haven't heard that story. I'm sure a lot of people have heard it, Steve. But basically, I think it's pretty important to this topic because basically you modded that car a lot. It had a lot of things on it. Now, I'm going to bring the BMW into the picture here, the 1M.
Yep.
Right? Now, to the listeners that don't know, Steve had a 1M. He had them before everyone wanted them, and he bought it at a reasonable price. He sold that due to what we do with all our cars, right, Steve? Personal things, priorities come up, so you sell it.
Mm-hmm. I needed to get married.
So with the 993, tell the listeners, so when you had the 993, you didn't think it was necessary to take the mods off? Like when you took it to Auto House and Auto House sold it for you, because they sold it for you, right? Did they say to you, it's best if you sell it with the mods off, or did you think you wanted to take some of the mods off and sell them? Why did you not remove anything?
So, well, I did. I took some of the most extreme kind of bits off it. And so, for example, the really, really loud, I think it was a DAC, it was called a DAC X pipe, which was like super loud.
Does that sound like daka like that?
Don't know if you can get them anymore, but they were like one of the kind of mods to have on Renlist at the time. I think I had a different steering wheel, which I kind of had taken off. So I basically knew, to answer Amir's sort of thing, I kind of knew that there were some mods on there that were polarizing, that they really weren't to everyone's taste. Like nobody's going to jump in that car and want it to be that loud. The steering wheel was not to everyone's taste, blah, blah, blah. So there were certain things that I kind of did sort of have removed. There were other bits, to be honest, where I kind of knew that I wouldn't recoup the value in it. So I think, for example, I had the red sort of factory seat belts, which are worth an absolute fortune, like particularly back in those days. And I still had the original black seat belts. So I had them taken off and I sold the seat belts. There was stuff like that. I should have reverted the stereo, but I think I lost the original factory speakers, and then it just kind of got a bit too hard, because the catch to all of this too is that like that car obviously had a bit of work done to it, but it obviously does cost you like labor costs to go and take it to your indie mechanic or your Porsche dealership and kind of go, hey, can you spend quite a few hours putting all of these bits back on this car? So depending on what it is, like,
yeah.
And for example, with my 1M, I had the really good Recaro Sportster seats done up. So I had them and I put them into the 1M. It was a BMW factory option. So same thing, when I sold the 1M, I had those seats taken out and the original ones put back in. But just by the way of kind of a reference point, it wasn't an easy thing to kind of put them in and to take them back out again. Like, it was quite a few hours in labor because there was a little bit of trickiness in the wiring. So it still cost me significant money to do it.
But why wouldn't you have sold them with those seats? Because those seats are very special. And they really, to me, they made the car. They're so much better than the standard BMW seats. Like that the steering wheel you put the steering wheel in as well, right? The steering wheel, the Alcantara, and those seats just made that car. And if I was looking for a 1M and it had those seats and that steering wheel, I think that's a thing not to remove them, because was it because you didn't think you're going to get the money back, but you said it cost you money to take them out, so it's still still got more money back by taking them out and spending that money?
Because they were more valuable to take them out of the car and to sell them individually, because those seats were so sought after, than to leave them in the car. So I'll put numbers against it, pretend, okay? Like, I think in total I paid
Let's be real. Let's not pretend. How much?
Well, like, I think, like I got those seats as a bargain. I kind of got them retrimmed. Like, my mate Clarence helped me, all that sort of stuff. So I can't remember what the numbers are, but pretend I spent like about $2,000 on the seats. But like pulling them out and then on selling them, I managed to kind of get, like maybe like another $1,000 on that. So pretend it was $3,000, right? I couldn't. If I sold the 1M with those seats in it, I don't think I would have gotten like an extra $3,000 on the asking price for it. So it was worth spending the, like $200 or, $300 in labor to kind of have them swapped back out again and go to that trouble.
I think that makes sense. You know what I mean? If it's something that is, say you had say you had a GT3 and a comfort spec and you got the carbon seats we're talking about and they cost you $20,000. I don't think you're going to recoup that $20,000 when you sell the GT3. So in that case, maybe you put the original ones back in, or maybe you say, and you see these ads online where people say, I have the seats are an option, or the wheels are an option. I'll give you the original seats, but if you want these seats, then they're extra cost. We can negotiate it. And I think that's the way to do it. And I think the thing about,
it's troublesome though. It is troublesome. Like, and that's a really good example. Like the one at Autohouse. That car came spec'd, like that's touring spec, but it's the first owner obviously kind of asked for the buckets to be put in.
Yeah.
If you had the original kind of touring seats and then you pulled those out and then you tried to flog those buckets, like, you're going to be able to fetch like another $20,000, and you can tell already, like in the price online. There's no way that there's a $20,000 premium for that car with those seats if you kind of sold it as a package deal. So
yeah, true.
If you save up all your kind of bits and pieces and you kind of get lucky and, particular kind of items start to appreciate in value, like some steering wheels, some seats, most, I guess, exhaust mods. Akrapovic exhausts tend to hold their value.
It depends on your market, though, doesn't it, Steve? It depends on the people you're selling to. Like, are you selling off market? Are you selling through, say, Porsche Forums Australia? Are you selling, how are you selling the car? I think determines what you do with how you've personalized it. So if you personalized it, not in a super extreme way, but, just set up for the track or whatever it is. Simon, who's on a previous owner story, saying the first GT3, I think it was set up for the track, and he was happy with that. He bought it like that, and he was happy to have that car. So it really does depend on the buyer, and it really does depend on how extreme you've been. But if they're options that other people are looking at and would add to their car when they purchased it. When they purchased it, if say you want a GT3 as a track car, well then, you know, you don't really want to go to the hassle of removing everything, do you?
Yeah, it is a pain in the arse. Like that's obviously the point that I'm sort of making. But I always sort of find it slightly ironic too that it seems like, I'm just generalizing for a second, that when you kind of go shopping for a call it a Porsche, like a 911, everybody wants it to sort of be essentially kind of bog standard, like how it came from the factory. But then at the same time, there's a number of us that are actually, you know, quite happy to modify it, but you sort of seek out a car that's not modified. So, you know, like quite often you sort of see cars online that actually are modified. And, you know, like I have this conversation with my uncle all the time. He sort of says, oh, you know, why would you buy that? And it's like, I can see why you would buy that. Because if it's got the mods that you want, like if it's got a good exhaust and it's got good suspension and stuff like that, you shouldn't necessarily kind of shy away from it, because to a degree that also shows that it might be a like-minded person who's actually quite enthusiastic. Doesn't mean that they've hammered it on a track.
Yeah.
And the catch to that conversation is that maybe they couldn't be asked sort of taking that stuff off, and maybe you can kind of pick up all these kind of nice extra bits, you know, like and not have to pay more for it.
Yeah.
It's just funny how people's mindset is that they really, really want to buy, you know, like if I sold my car, not that I ever will, but if I did, I'm sure that pretty much the majority of potential buyers will want that car to be, you know, as standard as possible kind of thing.
Yeah, but you wouldn't go out. You wouldn't go about and take all the leather pieces off and change everything. See, that's just.
I could,
but
I don't know if I would, but I could.
I don't know. I think if you, I don't know. Maybe I'm different. But if I was buying your car, I would be happy with how you've got it set up. You know, happy with the, you know, maybe the exhaust could be, you know, like I said, polarizing to some people. It's too loud. Maybe it has to be dialed down. Maybe they want the original gear knob and not one of the 4 or 5 that you bought recently.
There's an update on that.
But you know what I mean? And maybe they see, I always worry, you know, let's just go to my car, you know, and I get worried because I think, you know, no one's going to want the platinum wheels, right? And I think, shit, you know, someone's going to want to buy it and they just want it. No, I don't want those wheels. That's not the standard wheel. It's not the OEM wheel. Well, it's not the OEM color. Well, it is an OEM color. It is a, you know, 991 color, GT4 color, whatever it is. It is a Porsche color, which is why my caps match. Yeah, it's not on the 997. So I understand that. So what would I do? If someone says, I don't like it because I don't like the wheels, you know, do I give them a discount because they don't like the wheels? No. Do I spray the wheels, which is going to cost me $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever it costs to spray wheels in Sydney, which is a crazy amount of money, I'm sure. You know.
You could, but you could just tell the buyer to do it. I don't know.
You could just do the buyer to do it, but then they might say, oh, you know, give me a discount because I don't want it. See, I always worry about wheels because I know people are very particular. And like I said, you know, when it go back to me when buying the 997 and thinking I didn't want to buy it at first because of the wheels, which was stupid. You know what I mean? Which was stupid because I just got other wheels. So
slightly different question too. You know how you just sort of said, like, if you were in the GT3, you are in the GT3 market. If you were, would you be happy to kind of buy my car as is? Do you think that's because you know me though? So you know how careful I am with it. You know exactly kind of what I've done, as opposed to like if I was a stranger online and you just sort of saw an ad like that. Would that is that part of the reason why?
No, I think it'd be still okay because everything you've done are things you would do, like the DSC controller or whatever you've got, and the carnule thing, and the, you know, those things are things you would do to that car. Do you know what I mean?
They're all known things, and that's exactly how the my 993 was as well. But like I sort of said, you know, it's almost not quite 10 years, but it's kind of getting there since I've sold that car. And I'm pretty sure back in the time when I actually did sell it, I don't think it did the value wasn't necessarily like a good thing. I think it sort of probably narrowed the sphere of potential kind of buyers.
Yeah. Look, I think the main thing is if you are, and you know what Amir was suggesting, you know, if you're personalizing your car, and I know he wasn't doing a lot to his car because he had a warranty. I think it was on the 997. I think from memory, I can't remember. But, you know, I think the main thing is whatever parts you take off. Like someone sent me a message the other day, I don't know whether, I think they listened to the podcast, sorry, I can't remember your name, saying, did I want to sell my console lid? because they saw my video on YouTube, on my Michael Barth YouTube channel, and said,
your original one.
Yeah, do you want to sell it? Because I'm looking for one. And I said, look, I'm not willing. I don't want to sell it because I like to keep all my original parts.
Yep.
Now that might seem crazy, but for me, I like to keep everything. And I think if you personalize your car, I think you keep all those parts, and you see it with 993s and you see it with 964s where people change the steering wheel and they say, I have the original steering wheel. Do you know what I mean? Even with 912s. People change the wheels and they say, I have the original wheels, you know?
Yep.
So I think those things are good, you know? And I think that's what you need to do. You need to keep it. Whether or not you put everything back on for them or you tell them when they come to look at it, whether that's going to impact make it take longer to sell, does that matter? Are you that desperate to sell quickly? See, I don't know. For me, I don't think I'd be that desperate to sell quickly, so I don't think it'd be a problem. I guess if you're desperate and you want to sell quickly, Steve, and depending if you're taking it to a Porsche dealer, maybe you have to take those options off. Maybe they'll say it's best if you take the options off, or it's best if you take, like you said, that loud exhaust off that I can't hear, or take this off.
Crazy polarizing things.
Maybe some things stay, some things go. I think that's how it works. I mean, I saw a GT3 for sale on, I think it was Australia or UK, and it said, I think it had a couple of things a guy had done to it, and one was just the Sharkworks X-Pipe or whatever it was.
Yep.
You know, and I thought, well, aren't most people that are going to buy that GT3 are going to think, well, the Sharkworks thing is pretty cool and I'd probably get one anyway.
That's what I'd want.
Yeah,
yes.
that's the best one and that's what you want, so you wouldn't take it off. I think if the car has been tuned and something's happened in the tuning or something like that, I think that's different. I think that sort of thing could cause an issue when you go to sell it. And I noticed some M3s that are for sale. I noticed some M3, it said it had been chipped or something.
Yeah, my 1M was
M2,
chipped.
1M.
I had a 1M piggyback sort of little thing. It was just a box that you just kind of wired in. I had that chipped, but I took it off before I sort of sold it.
But see, does that cause any issue to the engine, these sort of boxes? No? So you took that off?
It depends on how hard you kind of drive it and all of that sort of stuff. It obviously works the turbos kind of harder because it dials the boost up and everything. But, you know, like I put 30,000 K on that car and I never drove it like crazy hard, so it wouldn't have done anything bad to it.
I mean, it's a tricky one. It's like, I keep going back to our previous conversations, it's like tires. It's like values. It's like, you know, personalizing in Porsche. Do you take all the mods off and put it back to stock? I mean, is there a right or wrong answer? Not really. You know what I mean? It's like all these things in Porsche world. It's like
Different
you read one thing.
Yeah,
it just depends on the situation. You know what I mean? And it depends on your buyer and it depends where you're selling it.
I think you're right. Like, you know, if I was to sell the GT3, I think I probably would revert like a decent amount of stuff. And I would either potentially sell all the kind of bits and pieces sort of separately or offer, you know, like to a seller that, you know, like for an extra X amount of money, they could have any number of gear knobs, exhaust options, blah, blah, blah.
But that's not because you think it's going to impact the price, right? That's just because you think you can still get the price for the car, even if you take the mods off and you can make some extra money.
Both. Yeah, both.
Really?
Yep. Like, okay, so if you were selling your car...
But all the carbon, you take all the carbon pieces off? Your carbon ducts on your engine, would you take them off?
Yeah, maybe.
Really? I don't know. I think if you had the right buyer, you wouldn't need to. But then you want to get the return.
That's what
I see what you mean.
You see, like you're kind of going there needs to be the one person that on a white car quite likes, you know, sort of a little bit of external kind of cosmetic kind of carbon just for the sake of it. Because there are a lot of people that don't like carbon.
Just a little bit.
You know. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know how Steve never gives away anything. Just a little bit. All right. I'm exhausted. I think we're going to stop today. I think that's it. Yeah, cool. What do you think, Steve?
All good. Yeah.
Any final comments on that for Amir? Yeah. What do you say? Remove it or keep it?
Sort of sits in the middle, I think.
Yeah, it sits in the middle, I think, too. It depends on the buyer. Depends on the situation. It depends on if you can get more, or you can get, you know, if you can get more for you for the parts, maybe you do take them off. But then there's the labor to take the parts off. I guess if you can take them off yourself, it's not a big deal. I can't. I'd have to pay someone to do it. So,
what's on your car though? Like
wheels?
You don't have that much.
Fister exhaust. Which no one would know anyway, because you'd have to look underneath, and see it's black.
Yeah. So your car, you definitely wouldn't take the Fister off. You'd leave it. The wheels, you'd leave it as well.
The Danks sports tips.
You leave that as well.
Dual sports tips, which I love. The stripe. Yeah. I think the stripe's going to go anyway. I think I'm going to take the stripe off.
I reckon you'd probably peel the stripe off if you were, like, we're talking hypothetically selling the thing.
But that's about it. I don't have many other options. That's it.
You don't have, there's nothing on your car that's like so polarizing that you just kind of go, well, that's devaluing it, or you're narrowing your sphere of people that would want to buy it, kind of thing.
No, because I've been very, me, I'm very OEM. I like to keep it close to being the same, right? So it's not that far removed. But I still think the wheels are a major thing on a car, and I think it might turn some people off.
I'll be honest, I'd sort of say to somebody in the market, no, look, it's going to sound very judgy, but it's a bit crazy kind of thing to not buy a car that's got the wrong coloured wheels, because it really is like $1,000 exercise to have them resprayed.
Well, especially when the wheels look so good with the car. I mean, if they were white wheels with a black lip or something, or the bright gold or something, I understand, but they're not polarizing. That's not a polarizing color. Do you know what I mean? It is a Porsche wheel color. Yeah. It's a Porsche wheel color, so it's still kind of OEM. It's still kind of it's not generation. It's different generation. It's 991 color, but still.
Another example is when my mate was looking for, decided to kind of get into 997 GT3, and we went and had a look at Alex Holland's car. If I don't think Alex would listen to this podcast, but even if he did, I don't think I'm sort of saying anything kind of nasty sort of thing. Right. Like that car, he deliberately painted the wheels red and put, the kind of red checkered decals from an RS on it, from the 0.2 RS. That's not to my taste, but if I was in the market and I wanted that car, would that sort of stop me from buying it? It's like, no, because I'd peel the stickers off and I'd spray the wheels like it's $1,000. Yeah. I'd tell him to do it.
It's like that Martini GT3 997 GT3 that's for sale. Yeah, and I know people are saying, the Martini, but they're just decals. I just pull them off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I get a discount if I got
gunmetal grey wheels on it. Just have them repainted.
Yeah, but you want something in return to do that. See, I'm thinking as a buyer now, not as a seller, and go, I've got to take those decals off. That's a hassle. Are you going to take them off for me?
If
I've got to change the wheels.
Seller,
Yeah. Anyway.
Yep.
All right, mate. I'm going to go to bed. It's after midnight. It's time for me to sleep. It's been a long day. That was good. What's happening today? Cool. You going for a drive?
No, it's about to pour, I think. So
really, take them a can off-roading.
Have to learn to swim.
I think it's called E-Motion Engineering, where they do all the mods to the Cayenne. I think they might do Macan as well, where they sort of lift it up and put it's overlanding thing. Yep. They look pretty cool.
Joey Seeley, or I think his name is. Yeah,
they look pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a thought in my head. All right, thanks, Steve.
No worries, mate. Have a good week.
You too.
Take care.
You too. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. As you know, that was Steve coming in from Sydney. My name is Michael Barth, and thanks for listening, and bye for now.